Vice, written and directed by Adam McKay, is a biographical comedy film that follows the rise of former Vice President Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney is played by Christian Bale, and we watch his rise from a drunken lineman to vice president. However, his rise to prominence didn't come without hard work, dedication, and a bit of a killer instinct. Dick tries to balance his loyalties to his family, his country, and of course his own professional interests as he makes his rise to the top end of the political food chain. Alright, so Vice was a movie I was certainly anticipating. The trailers never showed a whole lot, but what they did show intrigued me. I was interested to see Christian Bale's interpretation of a controversial political figure in Dick Cheney, and I was also interested to see how a director like Adam McKay would approach this type of story. I mean, he directed films like Step Brothers and Anchorman, Talladega Nights, all the Will Ferrell movies basically, and I wanted to see what angle he would take things here. Overall, I like this movie quite a bit, but I do feel that it could have been a lot better had it elected to approach things a bit more traditionally. There's a lot of things I really liked about it, but I felt that occasionally the film's more concerned with being unique and playing things cute than they are telling a compelling story. I wouldn't say this majorly capped my enjoyment of the movie, but I think this could have been a really great film had it maybe reined itself in a bit and picked its battles with the comedy. There's a tendency to get a bit too cute a bit too often, and it kind of feels like they aren't taking the subject matter seriously, which is a bit of a tonal misfire in my opinion. Also, this movie is very jarring from an editing standpoint. They incorporate a lot of freeze frames, odd transitions, and just unusual things that will have you sort of feeling like you're watching some sort of experimental biographical drama or something, which it is, kind of, but it doesn't always work, and it's kind of excessive in that way. I enjoyed the movie overall, but again, I found this movie to be excessive in a few areas where I don't feel like they needed to be. I like the enthusiasm and the creativity, but I felt that moderation could have helped this movie achieve a greater balance that just resulted in a more thoughtful and enjoyable movie-going experience. That said, those are my only real complaints with Vice. There's a lot of other aspects I did like. First and foremost, Christian Bale. He really brought his A-game for this role. I can't say I have a great deal of insight into what Dick Cheney sounds like, or his mannerisms for that matter, but I was extremely impressed with what Christian Bale delivered here. I think he really transformed into a version of Dick Cheney, and he becomes completely unrecognizable as Christian Bale. I like this depiction of him, though, because Christian Bale depicts this character as a morally complex character, one that makes decisions based on a changing code of ethics, I guess you could say. And I think a large part of what makes this film as good as it is Christian Bale delivering such a great performance. To me, this is probably going to earn him a Best Leading Actor performance nomination. Hard to say if he'll win for it, but I think his transformation and consistently high-level acting in this movie is really something to marvel at, despite the movie not getting the best reviews overall. I found the supporting performances to also be pretty good. I really liked Amy Adams as Dick Cheney's wife, Lynn Cheney, and I honestly wish she was given more to do. It just felt like a shame to waste her talent on a handful of scenes, but I guess that's kind of the role when you think about it. She's not the focus of this movie, and that's fine. Either way, she plays her part extremely well as expected. She's always great. Steve Carrell, also really great, as he always is, plays Donald Rumsfeld in a way that depicts him as a total sleazeball, but entertaining in a terrible kind of way. Sam Rockwell plays George W. Bush pretty well too. I wouldn't say his impression or his acting job is spot on, but it's pretty good and pretty close, and I was impressed. Let's just say this, you know exactly who he's playing, even though it's not 100%. Comedy-wise, I found the movie to be decently funny. This isn't a knock your socks off type of movie, but there are some fairly self-aware jokes here that make for a somewhat enjoyable ride along the way. I still think they could have reined this comedy stuff in a tad and been a little bit more selective about when they use it, but there are plenty of moments where it works well, and I found myself laughing. I think the goal here was to take some serious source material and add some lightheartedness to it in a creative kind of way, and it works sometimes. It works very well sometimes, but other times it gets in the way of a story and, kind of the story and how dramatic it should be. The perfect example is a fictional character created for the film that narrates a lot of it. I think sometimes the narration adds something meaningful, other times it gets too cute for its own good. Just so you're aware also, it's pretty one-sided. I'm not really a fan of Dick Cheney based on my limited understanding of politics, but I can even tell that this movie is fairly slanted in terms of how it portrays him. I think you're going to get that in one direction or another in a lot of politically based movies, but it's still something to note regardless going in. Let's take a look at the pros cons though as we wrap up. For the pros, I thought Christian Bale gave an outstanding Oscar-worthy performance. The supporting cast was all really good and immersed themselves into their characters, and the comedy is often funny and does a good job adding some lightheartedness at various points. For the cons, I think the movie too often gets too cute for its own good, and the editing is pretty jarring. I'm going to give Vice an 8 out of 10 and recommend you go check it out in theaters if you're interested in a unique take on a biographical film. I don't think it's a must-see, but it's a solid watch for sure. So did you guys see Vice yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And finally, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to start working on my top 10 films of 2018 video, and it should be out sometime in the near future, so stay tuned for that. That's all for now, though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.